everything. There comes a moment when you realize that nobody is coming to save you. And that moment is the beginning of your rise. Growth isn't magic. Success isn't random, everything. It's engineered through discipline, hunger, and a level of grind that forces you to evolve. This audiobook is your blueprint for building yourself deliberately, day by day, everything. Habit by habit, decision by decision, until you become someone unstoppable, not by luck, not by chance, but by effort so consistent it becomes impossible not to grow. Everything. There comes a moment in every person's life when the noise quiets, the excuses fade, everything. And you realize that the only thing standing between who you are and who you want to be is a decision. Not a perfect plan, not an opportunity handed to you, not a stroke of luck. Everything, just a choice. One that says, I'm done waiting, I'm done hesitating, I'm done living the same day on repeat. And when that decision is made with conviction, everything, your entire life begins to shift. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they never truly decide. They dip a toe in the water. Everything. Hoping change will somehow happen without risking anything, without committing, without getting uncomfortable. But growth doesn't respond to uncertainty. It responds to clarity. Everything. It responds to a moment when you stop wavering and plant your feet firmly in the direction of your future. Think about it. Everything. Every transformation story you've ever admired starts with a single turning point. A moment when someone looked at their life and said, not like this. Everything. Not anymore. It might have been after a mistake, after a heartbreak, after hitting rock bottom. Everything. Or maybe after nothing dramatic at all. Just the simple exhaustion of living below their potential. Sometimes the most powerful decisions are born quietly. Everything. In the middle of an ordinary day, when something inside finally wakes up. Picture a young man who's been drifting for years, switching jobs, staying up late, everything. Telling himself he'll change tomorrow. Nothing catastrophic happens. No crisis. No breaking point. Just one morning he wakes up, looks at himself in the mirror, everything, and sees the truth. He's been waiting for someone to push him, waiting for a sign, waiting for motivation to magically appear. And in that moment, he whispers to himself, everything, it's time. That whisper carries more power than any motivational speech because it's not noise, it's a decision. Or imagine a woman who's spent years doubting her abilities, everything, convincing herself she's not ready, not qualified, not strong enough. Her life becomes a loop of fear disguised as preparation. One day she opens her laptop, everything, stares at the opportunities she's been too afraid to pursue, and instead of closing the screen like she always does, she takes a breath and sends the email, submits the application, everything, makes the call. Her hands tremble, her heart races, but she presses send. That small click becomes the beginning of her new life. These moments may look small from the outside, everything, but internally they carry the weight of destiny. Because the moment you decide, truly decide, something changes inside you. You stop looking for shortcuts, everything. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop treating your dreams like fragile ideas that might break if you touch them. You begin moving with intention, everything. This is the power of the decision that changes everything. Not because the decision itself solves every problem, but because it shifts your identity, everything. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who wishes, you become someone who acts. Instead of watching life pass by, you step onto the field. Instead of fearing mistakes, everything, you accept that progress demands them. The truth is, most people wait too long. They wait for motivation, forgetting that motivation comes after action, not before. They wait for confidence, everything. Forgetting that confidence is earned by doing the thing you're afraid of. They wait for the perfect moment, forgetting that the perfect moment only reveals itself after you begin. Everything. You cannot grow while waiting. Waiting freezes you in place, traps you in routines that feel safe but slowly drain your potential. Everything. And life has a way of letting you stay exactly where you choose to remain. But the moment you decide, genuinely, deeply decide, your energy shifts. Everything. Suddenly you're willing to wake up earlier, to show up consistently, to push yourself in ways you avoided before. Suddenly you care less about opinions and more about outcomes. Everything. Suddenly the same obstacles that used to stop you become challenges you're ready to face. You start thinking differently, walking differently, choosing differently. Everything. It's the difference between someone who says, I want to get in shape, and someone who says, everything. I'm becoming the kind of person who takes care of their body. One person speaks from hope, the other speaks from identity. One waits for the right week to begin, everything. The other starts today. And guess who grows? Always the one who decides. You may think your life is shaped by the big things, careers, relationships, opportunities. But in reality, everything. Your life is shaped by the single moment you choose a direction. Because that decision creates momentum. It creates a chain reaction. One disciplined morning becomes a disciplined week. Everything. One small step becomes a new pattern. One brave choice becomes a new standard. And those standards slowly build the life you once thought was out of reach. Everything. Think back to a time when you did make a real decision, even if it was small. Maybe it was ending a bad habit. Maybe it was improving a relationship. Everything. Maybe it was choosing to show up when you could have backed out. Whatever it was, notice how everything around that decision changed. Your energy, your results, yourself, respect, everything. That wasn't luck. That was alignment. That was the universe responding to clarity. When you commit to a decision, life meets you halfway. Not instantly, not always the way you expect, everything, but consistently. Because there's something magnetic about determination. People feel it. Opportunities sense it. Everything. Even your own mind and body start operating differently when you know you're all in. Of course, choosing isn't easy. A real decision requires courage. Everything. It requires you to let go of the comfortable lies you've been telling yourself, the ones that say you need more time, more talent, more resources, more support. Everything. Growth doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Growth begins in the middle of imperfection, in the middle of doubt, in the middle of fear. The decision is simply you choosing to move anyway. Everything. You don't have to know every step. You don't have to see the entire path. You just need to know this: the first step is yours. And once you take it, the next one becomes clearer. Everything. Then the next, and eventually you look back and realize that the life you once dreamed of began the moment you stopped hesitating. Everything. There's a reason successful people talk about a turning point. They aren't exaggerating it. That moment was real. But it wasn't magic. It was a decision followed by action. Everything. Repeated consistently until success had no choice but to show up. The person you admire, the one who seems disciplined, confident, and focused, wasn't always that way. Everything. They became that way because they made a choice and protected it. And now it's your turn. Right here, right now, you get to choose who you're becoming. Not next month. Not next year. Everything. Not when you feel ready. This is the doorway. This is the moment. Every part of your life that feels stuck, messy, confusing, everything, or limited is waiting for you to stop delaying and make a clear choice. Will you rise? Will you commit? Will you step into the version of yourself that you know you're capable of becoming? Everything. No one can decide that for you, but the second you do, the world around you will start to shift in ways you can't yet imagine. All growth begins here, with a single, everything, defining decision that changes everything. Discipline is rarely glamorous at first glance. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't hype you up. It doesn't ask for applause. Everything. It sits quietly in the background, shaping you, strengthening you, turning you into someone capable of things your old self could barely imagine. And yet, everything. Discipline is the engine of all progress. It is the force that takes dreams out of your imagination and drags them into reality. When you understand this, when you commit to it fully, everything, you stop depending on motivation and start depending on yourself. That's when your life begins to transform. Think about the moments in your life when things changed for the better. Everything. It probably wasn't luck. It probably wasn't a sudden burst of inspiration. It was consistency. It was the mornings you didn't feel like getting up, but you got up anyway. Everything. It was the workouts you pushed yourself through even though the couch was calling your name. It was the nights you studied, worked, or practiced when no one else was watching. Everything. That's discipline. The quiet decisions you make over and over again that compound into something powerful. Everything. Part of the reason people struggle with discipline is because they wait for the right mood. They think they need to feel inspired before they can act. Everything. But discipline doesn't rely on emotion. It's not interested in whether you're excited or tired, confident or doubtful. Everything. It's a system, a daily operating code that you follow regardless of how you feel. When discipline becomes your default mode, excuses lose their power. Everything. You move because movement is who you are now. Consider the story of a man who wanted to get his life in order after years of inconsistency. He told himself he would start when he felt ready. Everything, when work slowed down, when stress eased up. But those perfect conditions never arrived. One morning, drained and frustrated, he finally realized that waiting had cost him years. Everything. So he decided to change differently this time. Instead of promising himself big dramatic goals, he focused on one disciplined action: everything. Waking up every day at the same time and walking for 10 minutes. That was it. 10 minutes. The first week felt forced. The second week felt slightly easier. By the third week, everything. Something inside him shifted. He began to trust himself. The 10 minutes grew to 20, then 30. His diet changed without him forcing it. His energy improved. Everything. His mindset strengthened. All of it began with one simple act of discipline repeated consistently. That's the power of discipline. It multiplies. It spills into every part of your life. Everything. Improving areas you didn't even intend to improve. Your confidence grows because you start proving to yourself that you can follow through. Everything. You stop making excuses because excuses sound weaker when they face the reality of your actions. And most importantly, you begin to see progress, real, everything, gradual progress that builds a version of you capable of so much more. Most people underestimate how simple discipline can be. Everything. They think it requires extreme willpower or a personality built for suffering. But discipline isn't about punishment. It's about alignment. Everything. It's about aligning your actions with the person you want to become. It means choosing your future self over your temporary comfort. And that choice, repeated enough times, everything, becomes who you are. To build discipline, start with clarity. You need to know what matters to you. If your goals are vague, discipline has nothing to anchor itself to. Everything. Discipline thrives when you have a clear identity, the type of person you are determined to become. Tell yourself, I am someone who follows through. Everything. I am someone who does the work. It might feel strange at first, but identity shapes behavior. When you see yourself as someone disciplined, your actions slowly begin to match that belief. Everything. Next, simplify your commitments. People destroy their own discipline by trying to do too much at once. They set 5 big goals, build complex plans, and overload themselves with expectations. Everything. But discipline grows through small, repeatable wins. If you want to write a book, start with 10 minutes of writing a day. If you want to get in shape, everything. Start with 5 minutes of stretching or a short walk. The goal isn't intensity. The goal is consistency. You want actions small enough that you cannot rationalize your way out of them. Everything. And here's the part most people don't expect. Discipline becomes easier when you remove negotiation. You cannot wake up every morning and debate whether you feel like doing the work. Everything. You decide ahead of time. You treat your commitments like non-negotiable appointments with your future. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't wait to feel inspired to do it. Everything. You don't debate it. You just do it because it's part of your life. Discipline works the same way. The more you eliminate internal negotiation, the stronger your follow-through becomes. Everything. There will be days when you don't feel like doing anything. Days when your energy is low, your mind is scattered, and your motivation is nowhere to be found. These days matter the most. Everything. These are the days that separate the person you are from the person you are becoming. Discipline is not built on your best days. It's built on your hardest days. If you can just show up, everything, even at 50%, even at 20%, you build a level of trust and resilience that becomes unshakable. Imagine someone training for a marathon. Everything. They don't improve only on the days the weather is perfect and their body feels fresh. They improve on the days their legs are heavy, the days they wake up tired. Everything. The days the road feels longer than usual. Every step taken under less than perfect conditions builds a deeper level of strength and discipline. Life works the same way. Everything. The wins that matter most are the ones earned on days you didn't want to try. One of the greatest gifts discipline gives you is momentum. Once you start showing up consistently, everything, your mind shifts. You begin to feel the power of forward motion. You feel the satisfaction of progress, even if it's small. And the more momentum you build, everything, the easier it becomes to keep going. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates more action. And that action builds a version of you that becomes difficult to stop. Everything. Another important part of discipline is controlling your environment. Your environment shapes your behavior more than you realize. If your surroundings are filled with distractions, everything, temptations, and chaos, discipline becomes harder. But if your environment supports your goals, discipline becomes natural. Place your running shoes next to your bed. Everything. Keep your workspace clean. Remove the apps that waste your time. Surround yourself with people who respect your mission. Everything. Small changes in your environment can lead to big changes in your behavior. And let's talk about something people rarely acknowledge. Being disciplined is uncomfortable. It requires effort, everything, sacrifice, and sometimes boredom. But discomfort is not your enemy. It's the doorway to your evolution. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, everything, you're training your mind to tolerate discomfort, which means you're training your mind to grow. When you learn to embrace discomfort, even slightly, everything, you gain an unfair advantage over the world, because most people run from it. You will walk through it. If you ever find yourself doubting your ability to stay disciplined, remember this: everything. Discipline is not a personality trait, it's a skill. And like any skill, it grows with practice. You don't need to be perfect, everything. You just need to be consistent enough to keep building the muscle. If you miss a day, don't spiral. Don't throw away your progress. Simply return the next day, everything. The difference between the person who wins and the person who quits is not talent, it's persistence. It's returning even after falling off track, everything. There's something powerful that happens when discipline becomes part of your identity. You start to feel grounded. You begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before, everything. You stop relying on motivation because you don't need it anymore. You know you'll show up whether you feel like it or not. That inner stability becomes life-changing, everything. It makes you reliable to yourself, and when you can rely on yourself, the world becomes easier to face. Challenges feel manageable, goals feel achievable, your future feels clearer, everything. Think about who you could become if you embraced discipline fully. A year of discipline could transform your health, your mindset, your finances, your relationships, and your confidence, everything. Not because of one massive effort, but because of thousands of small decisions done consistently. Discipline turns ordinary people into extraordinary versions of themselves. It's not loud, everything. It's not dramatic, it's steady, quiet, and relentless. And it works. When you begin to live this way, you realize something profound. Discipline is not the prison people think it is. Everything. It's freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from the limitations of your old identity. Everything. Discipline creates a life you can be proud of. A life that moves in the direction you choose, not the direction you drift. And every day, with every small action, you reinforce the truth. Everything. You can rely on yourself. There is a moment in every person's life when the struggle feels heavier than usual, when the weight on your shoulders seems unfair, unreasonable, everything, maybe even unbearable. And in that moment, you have a choice to let the struggle define you or to let it refine you. Everything. Most people never realize that the struggle itself is the training ground, the forge where strength, clarity, and character are hammered into shape. Everything. Nothing powerful is created without pressure. Nothing extraordinary emerges without friction. You are no different. Your story is being shaped in the very moments you wish you could skip. Everything. Think about the times in your life when you grew the most. It wasn't when everything was smooth. It wasn't during the easy seasons, the peaceful periods. Everything. The comfortable stretches where nothing challenged you. Growth comes from the moments that push you, stretch you, and confront you. Everything. It's the heartbreak that forces you to develop inner peace. It's the financial stress that fuels your creativity. It's the rejection that teaches you persistence. Everything. It's the disappointment that forces you to raise your standards. Every struggle you've survived has quietly been preparing you for what comes next. But in the middle of the storm, everything. It's hard to see that. When life is testing you, it doesn't come with a label that says, "This is making you stronger." It comes disguised as frustration, confusion, failure, everything, and pain. You feel like you're being pushed down when really, life is trying to push you forward. Every setback carries a message. Every difficulty carries a lesson. Everything. And the people who rise in life are the ones who learn to listen. They don't run from struggle. They learn from it. They build with it. They let it sculpt who they are becoming. Everything. Imagine a person in the gym trying to build muscle. The weight in their hands isn't comfortable. Their muscles burn. Their lungs tighten. Their body shakes. Everything. But they keep lifting because they understand a simple truth: without the resistance, there is no growth. Without the pressure, there is no strength. Everything. What they are doing physically is exactly what struggle does to you emotionally and mentally. Life gives you the weight, and you have to decide whether you'll let it crush you or shape you. Everything. Every challenge is a rep. Every setback is a set. Every ounce of effort is building a version of you that can handle more, do more, and become more. Everything. You don't become unbreakable by avoiding difficulty. You become unbreakable by walking through it and discovering that you are capable of more than you ever realized. Everything. Struggle forces you to explore parts of yourself you didn't know existed. It reveals your creativity, your resilience, your courage, and your patience. Everything. It shows you what you're truly made of. Think about someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, panic sets in, fear, uncertainty. But then, slowly, something shifts. Everything. They start exploring skills they never used. They find a new path, maybe start a business, maybe switch industries, everything, maybe pursue something they always dreamed of, but never had the courage to try. The job loss feels like an ending, but in reality, it becomes a starting point. Everything. It becomes the event that forces reinvention, that wakes up their potential, that pushes them toward something better. That struggle becomes the turning point of their life. Everything. Or think about someone who faces heartbreak. Their world collapses, they feel broken, empty, confused. But eventually, after the grieving, after the healing, something new grows inside them. Everything. They become stronger. They learn to set boundaries. They stop settling. They understand their worth. They rediscover themselves outside of the relationship. And slowly, everything. They realize the heartbreak didn't destroy them. It rebuilt them. It peeled away a version of them that needed to evolve. It taught them how to love themselves again. Everything. These stories play out in millions of lives every single day, and they remind us of an undeniable truth: struggle doesn't take from you. Struggle teaches you everything. It reveals the areas where you must grow, and it gives you the pressure necessary to grow them. But to turn struggle into strength, you must shift how you think about adversity. Everything. Most people see discomfort as a sign to retreat. Successful people see discomfort as a sign to lean in. Most people run when things get hard. Strong people keep walking. Everything. Because they know what's on the other side is worth it. The mindset you bring into your struggle determines how much strength you extract from it. So the question becomes, everything. How do you train yourself to use struggle as fuel instead of letting it drain you? The first step is acceptance. Everything. Not the passive acceptance that says, this is just how life is, but the active acceptance that says, this is happening and I will use it. When you stop fighting reality, everything, you free your mind to start finding solutions. Energy stops leaking out through frustration and starts channeling into progress. Acceptance turns chaos into strategy. Everything. It gives you back control. The second step is reflection. Everything. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Shift the question to, what is this trying to teach me? Those are two completely different mindsets. One keeps you stuck. Everything. The other sets you free. Every struggle carries information about your patterns, your habits, your weaknesses, your strengths. When something goes wrong, everything, you are being shown where you need to level up. Reflection turns pain into wisdom. Reflection turns setbacks into stepping stones. The third step is consistent, small action. Everything. You don't have to overcome the entire struggle in one day. You just need to take one step. One call, one adjustment, one honest conversation, one brave decision. Everything. Strength is built slowly, rep by rep, day by day. You don't become resilient in a single moment. You become resilient through repeated exposure to difficulty. Everything. Combined with the repeated choice to keep going. Every small step taken in the middle of adversity teaches your brain, I am capable. And that belief compounds. Everything. The fourth step is perspective. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from looking at your struggle differently. Instead of seeing it as a punishment, see it as preparation. Everything. Instead of seeing it as a setback, see it as a setup. Life is not trying to break you. It's trying to build you. You may not understand it today. You may not understand it next week. Everything. But one day you'll look back and realize the struggle was shaping something powerful in you. Perspective is the lens that turns pain into purpose. The fifth step is patience. Everything. Strength takes time. Healing takes time. Transformation takes time. Don't rush the process. Don't compare your journey to anyone else's. Your struggle is yours for a reason. Everything, your timeline is yours for a reason. And sometimes the delay is where the development happens. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. Everything. It means trusting that your consistent effort will eventually create results, even if you cannot see them yet. And finally, the sixth step is belief. Belief in yourself. Everything. Belief in your future. Belief that the struggle you're facing is not stronger than the person you are becoming. When you believe you can turn adversity into strength, everything, your mind starts searching for ways to make that belief real. Belief is the internal spark that gives every external action power. It keeps you moving when progress is slow. Everything. It keeps you focused when distractions try to pull you away. It keeps you grounded when life feels unstable. Belief is the anchor that keeps you steady in the storm. Everything. You were not meant to live a life free from struggle. You were meant to become someone who turns struggle into strength, someone who uses pain as fuel. Everything. Someone who rises every time life pushes them down. Think of the strongest people you admire, the leaders, the creators, the survivors, the visionaries. Everything. None of them were shaped by comfort. All of them were shaped by moments that tested them. They didn't escape struggle. They transformed through it. Everything. And you are capable of the same transformation. You are capable of using every challenge as a catalyst for evolution. You are capable of becoming someone stronger, wiser, more patient. Everything. More disciplined, more resilient than you ever imagined. You don't have to wait for things to get easier. You have to become someone who can handle them. Everything. The struggle is not blocking your path. The struggle is building your path. Every day you endure, every challenge you face, everything. Every discomfort you lean into is constructing a version of you that can do things you once thought were impossible. So the next time life tests you, pause. Take a breath. Everything. And remind yourself, this is not the end of you. This is the making of you. Through this struggle, you are being sharpened. Through this difficulty, you are being strengthened. Everything. Through this moment, you are becoming someone powerful. Someone ready for the next chapter of your life. There's a point in every journey where motivation fades. Everything. Where the initial spark quiets down and life becomes louder than your ambitions. It happens to everyone. Even the most disciplined, the most driven, the most successful. The truth is, everything. Nobody wins because they feel inspired every day. They win because they've built systems that carry them forward when their emotions can't. Everything. Systems that turn ordinary days into productive ones. Systems that make success not a gamble, but a natural outcome of how they live. Everything. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing that even if you're tired, even if you're stressed, even if life stacks everything against you, you still grow. You still move forward. Everything. That's what a well-designed system gives you peace of mind. It replaces uncertainty with reliability. It removes chaos and replaces it with structure. And when your life has structure, everything, progress becomes automatic. Think about it like this. Motivation is like weather, unpredictable, changing, unstable. But systems are architecture. They don't depend on sunshine. Everything. They stand firm through storms. When you rely only on motivation, you're building your life on sand. But when you rely on systems, you're building on solid ground. Everything. You can see the difference clearly in people you know. Maybe there's someone in your life who says, I need to get in shape. And for a week, they go all in. They gym hard, cut carbs, everything. Watch fitness videos, feel the rush of motivation. But then work gets busy. Or it rains, or they're tired, and suddenly the fire goes out. Not because they're weak. Everything. Not because they're incapable, but because they never built a system. They relied on a feeling. Now think of someone else, maybe a person who's been running for years. Everything. They don't sprint. They don't talk about changing their life. They just lace up their shoes and go, day after day, year after year. They don't depend on motivation. Everything. They depend on the system they created. And because of that, they stay fit, stay sharp, stay consistent. Everything. That's the power you're about to claim. The power of designing your life so success becomes the natural byproduct of your behavior. It begins with routines, not glamorous routines. Everything. Not the cinematic morning routines you see online, where everything is perfect. Real routines. The ones built around your life, your responsibilities, your energy patterns. Everything. You don't need a routine that impresses people. You need one that works for you. A routine is simply a sequence you repeat until it becomes a part of you. Everything. And when something becomes a part of you, it doesn't require force anymore. You don't have to negotiate with yourself. You don't have to mentally fight every morning. You just do it. Everything. Because doing it has become normal. But here's the secret: routines aren't built by adding things. They're built by subtracting friction. Everything. If going to the gym takes 12 steps, finding clothes, packing a bag, driving across town, signing in, you'll skip more often than you show up. Not because you're lazy. Everything. But because the friction is too high. But if your clothes are already out, your gym is 5 minutes away, and you go at the same time every day, friction disappears. Everything. And when friction disappears, consistency rises. This is why environment matters just as much as routine. Your environment is either your silent teammate or your silent enemy. Everything. If it's cluttered, chaotic, and full of distractions, it drains your energy. It steals your focus. But if it's clean, intentional, and designed to support your goals, everything. It makes everything easier. If your goal is to read more, put a book where you usually put your phone. If your goal is to eat healthier, everything. Don't fill your kitchen with the foods that break your discipline. If your goal is to work deeply, create a space that signals to your brain. Everything. This is where focus happens. The small environmental cues matter, the placement of a notebook, the lighting in a room, the noise level, the objects within reach. Everything. These tiny details shape your behavior far more than motivation ever could. You don't need willpower when your environment points you in the right direction. Everything. And then there are habits, the building blocks of identity, the quiet architects of your future. People often underestimate habits because they seem too small to matter. Everything. But a habit is like a single droplet of water hitting a rock. One drop does nothing, but thousands of drops carve rivers. A habit repeated daily changes your brain, rewires your behavior, everything, and transforms how you respond to life. You are not the habits you do once in a while. You are the habits you do consistently, especially when you don't feel like doing them. Everything. Consider a person who writes a little every day. Just a paragraph, just a sentence if that's all they can manage. Most days, nobody sees the effort. Most days, it feels insignificant. Everything. But then one day, they look back and realize they've written thousands of words. They've built a skill. They've built a body of work. Not because of massive bursts of inspiration, everything, but because their system didn't require that inspiration in the first place. The truth is, systems free you from the trap of relying on your best days. Everything. Anyone can be productive on their best day. Anyone can work hard when they're excited. Everything. What separates the exceptional from the average is that the exceptional stay consistent even on their worst days. Imagine having a system that protects your future from your current mood. Everything. A system that keeps you advancing even when you're tired, stressed, or emotionally drained. A system that does not break just because you don't feel your best. Everything. That's the kind of structure you're meant to build. And it's not just about productivity. It's about energy. You can't pour from an empty cup. Everything. So part of your system must include recovery. Rest routines, sleep routines, emotional reset routines. Not because rest is a luxury, but because your growth depends on it. Everything. Too many people grind themselves into the ground thinking exhaustion is proof of commitment. But real commitment is building a system where you don't need to burn out to move forward. Everything. Real commitment is sustainable. It's smart. It's strategic. It ensures that you can grow for years, not weeks. Systems also give you clarity, a sense of direction that removes doubt. Everything. When you know what to do each day, when the steps are clear, when the structure is set, you spend less time thinking and more time executing. Clarity reduces overwhelm. Everything. Direction creates focus, and focus multiplies results dramatically. You don't need to control everything. You just need to control the things that repeat. Once you lock in a few key habits, everything, a few simple routines, and an environment that supports your goals, success stops feeling distant. It becomes inevitable. Everything. Because you've wired your life to push you upward instead of pulling you back. Think of a thermostat. If the temperature drops, everything. The system automatically turns on to bring the room back to its set level. Your habits can do the same. Even when life cools your motivation, your system pulls you back into progress. Everything. You rise back to your standard. And if you intentionally raise that standard over time, your entire life rises with it. That's why the people who seem unstoppable aren't superhuman. Everything. They're system-driven. They don't depend on luck. They don't depend on mood. They depend on structure. And you can build that structure too. One routine at a time. Everything. One habit at a time. One environmental shift at a time. You're not trying to force sudden transformation. You're creating a lifestyle that quietly, consistently, everything, automatically shapes you into the person you want to become. Because success is not an event, it's a system. And when you build the right one, it becomes almost impossible not to grow. Everything. Becoming the person who doesn't quit begins long before the world ever sees your success. It begins in the quiet moments, those late nights when you're tired. Everything. Those early mornings when nobody's watching, those days when the results don't match the effort but you show up anyway. Everything. Every person who has ever achieved something meaningful has lived through that tension, everything. That internal battle between the version of themselves that wants comfort and the version that wants greatness. The truth is, quitting is always the easiest option. It asks for nothing, everything. It costs nothing. It requires nothing. But the person who refuses to quit, the one who keeps showing up no matter how many times they stumble, that person becomes something rare, everything. They become unstoppable, not because they never fall, but because they never stay down. When you look at people you admire, the ones who seem to have built extraordinary lives, everything, it's easy to believe they're different from you. Maybe they had more advantages. Maybe they were born with more drive. Maybe things just came easier to them. But when you dig deeper, everything, when you actually look at their stories, you find something else. You find someone who kept pushing through seasons of doubt. Someone who kept going when people laughed at their dreams, everything. Someone who learned how to build momentum even when life was heavy. Their greatness wasn't a gift, it was a decision, everything. There's a moment I always remember, a conversation with a young man who was trying to change his life. He had big dreams, a plan he believed in, and a heart full of ambition, everything. But every time he'd make progress, he'd quit. Not because he didn't care, but because things got hard. He told me one day, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I can start everything. I just can't stay consistent." And I told him something he'd never heard before: consistency isn't a personality trait. It's something you build, everything. You don't magically become someone who doesn't quit, you train for it. You earn it through repetition, through small wins, through showing up even when you feel nothing. Everything. People think the hard part is starting. And yes, starting matters. But the real battle is continuing. Continuing when enthusiasm fades, continuing when motivation disappears, everything. Continuing when the journey feels longer than you expected. Becoming the person who doesn't quit means shifting the weight from your emotions to your identity. Most people live emotionally, everything. They do what feels good, they follow motivation, and when motivation drops, they stop. But the people who succeed long-term live by identity. They anchor themselves in who they are becoming, everything. They say, "This is what I do, not because I feel like it, but because it's who I am now." Think of it like this: a runner doesn't always feel like running, everything, but they run because they're a runner. An artist doesn't always feel inspired, but they create because they're an artist, everything. Someone building a stronger life doesn't always feel powerful, but they keep grinding because they've decided that growth is their identity, everything. The moment you shift from, "I want to achieve this," to, "I'm the kind of person who does the work," everything changes. The excuses lose power. The setbacks lose weight, everything. The obstacles become challenges instead of dead ends. One of the most important shifts in becoming someone who doesn't quit is learning to detach your progress from perfection, everything. Too many people quit because they slipped once. They missed a day, they made a mistake, they fell off track. And instead of restarting, they abandon the mission entirely, everything. But anyone who has built anything real will tell you, you don't need perfect days. You need persistent days. You need to become someone who can fail at 10 a.m., everything, and still get back on track at 10:15. You need to become someone who sees setbacks as part of the process, not a sign that you're unworthy or incapable. Imagine climbing a mountain, everything. The people who quit look at how far they still have to go and feel overwhelmed. The people who keep going look at how far they've come and choose another step, everything. Every step you take is a vote for the person you want to become. Every time you show up, you cast another vote, and over time, those votes shape your identity, everything. You become reliable to yourself. And that's when life becomes different, because nothing is more powerful than a person who trusts their own consistency, everything. It's important to understand that grit isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through practice, through pressure, everything, and through pushing yourself outside the limits of convenience. Think about a time in your life when you didn't quit something, maybe a job you stuck with, a commitment you honored, everything, a responsibility you carried even when it was uncomfortable. You weren't motivated every day, but you kept showing up because it mattered. That same strength lives inside you still, everything. You just have to apply it to your goals. There's a story of a woman who wanted to become a writer. For years, she'd start strong but quit every time the doubt crept in. One day, she said, "Everything. Enough. I'm tired of abandoning myself." So she made a promise: 500 words a day, no matter how tired, no matter how busy, no matter how uninspired. Everything. Some days she wrote 500 terrible words. Some days she wrote 500 brilliant ones. But she didn't quit. And over time, something inside her changed. Everything. She stopped seeing herself as an amateur. She became a writer. Not because she published a book, but because she lived like one. Eventually, the book came. Success followed. Everything. But what mattered most was who she became in the process. That's the essence of building a non-quit identity. The process shapes you more than the result. You become someone stronger, everything, someone more resilient, someone more capable. And even if your dreams evolve, the version of you who emerges is someone you can rely on forever. To build this identity, everything, you must embrace long-term focus. In a world obsessed with quick results and instant gratification, long-term focus is a superpower. The grind that guarantees growth is rarely glamorous. Everything. It's slow, it's repetitive, it's tedious, but it's transformative. When you commit to long-term effort, everything, you stop expecting overnight miracles and start valuing incremental improvement. You learn to enjoy the journey not because it's easy, everything, but because it's shaping you into someone extraordinary. Imagine planting a tree. You water it, protect it, and care for it long before it ever grows tall enough for anyone to admire. Everything. Growth you can't see is still growth. Progress that's invisible is still progress. Some of your greatest breakthroughs will happen quietly, internally, beneath the surface. Everything. That's why you must stay the course even when you feel like nothing is happening. Something is always happening. You're building endurance. You're building resilience. Everything. You're building the habits that will sustain your future success. Every person has a moment when they're tempted to quit. Everything. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck isn't talent or intelligence or luck. It's the voice they choose to listen to. The quitter hears the voice that says, everything. This is too hard. The person who becomes unstoppable listens to the voice that says, I can survive hard things. When you choose that voice consistently, everything, you forge a mindset that can carry you through any storm. And here's the truth, you don't have to be fearless to be someone who doesn't quit. You just have to be willing. Everything. Willing to keep going. Willing to get uncomfortable. Willing to look at failure and say, you don't get to define me. Every time you bounce back, you make quitting less of an option. Everything. You shrink the part of you that wants to take the easy way out and strengthen the part that demands growth. Whether you're building a business, healing from your past, everything, working on your health, or trying to create a better life, the same principle applies. You will be tested. You will be challenged. You will have days that drain you. That's normal. Everything. That's part of the journey. But those moments are invitations, opportunities to prove to yourself that you are becoming someone different. Everything. You are building a version of yourself who can do difficult things. You are shaping a mindset that is durable, unshakable, and persistent. When you understand that every effort counts, everything, every step matters, every day adds up, you stop chasing perfect conditions and start building permanent strength. And when you do, you discover something powerful. Everything. The person who doesn't quit isn't a superhero. They're human. They're imperfect. They're flawed. But they're committed. And commitment, done daily, everything, turns ordinary people into unstoppable forces. The world cannot break someone who has learned to stand back up over and over again. Everything. And the more you embrace this identity, the identity of someone who persists, someone who adapts, everything, someone who refuses to back down, the more you realize that your future will be shaped not by your excuses, but by your endurance. You are becoming someone unstoppable, decision at a time.